Dim the lights. Here we go. After the nationwide vote, the winner of American Idol Season 10 is Scotty McCreery!
Judy, it is so good catching up with you. We've been trying to make this happen for the last month or two. We never could make it happen in Garner, so here I am now in Kansas City, and finally you were able to break away from the American Idol crew for a few minutes.
So delighted to see familiar faces from Garner. I think it worked out perfect. It was meant to be.
Now let's think back to May 25th. In those final seconds, Ryan Seacrest was milking the thing, making it dramatic. We just knew, just announce it. Who is it? Who is it? What were you thinking?
When Ryan was getting ready to announce the winner, you know, I was holding Mike's hand, I was holding Ashley's hand, and I knew at that moment, no matter if Scott was first place or runner-up, that our lives were going to change forever, because he had gotten such a huge response all across the country. Even people in other countries had contacted us. We had spoken with people in Australia, New Zealand, and Europe. I just knew from that response that our lives would change. He would be in the public eye, and I just didn't know what to expect, but I knew there was no turning back at that point.
How has this whole American Idol thing affected your family? You, Mike, his sister, how's it affected you?
Well, looking back, it happened at the right time. You know, as a mom, I really am struggling with the fact that at 17, Scotty's life has changed forever. But as far as the family perspective, you know, his older sister Ashley is a junior at UNC Charlotte, so Ashley was kind of off doing her thing at college. Mike travels a lot with his company, works for Schneider Electric. You know, I sold real estate, and I had renewed my teaching certificate. I was going to go back and teach. But there were all things that I could put on the back burner. You know, I referred my real estate business out, sold my little tanning salon I had in Clayton, talked to Mr. Cook at the high school about how it wasn't a good time to go back and teach right now. So it all worked out. You know, it wasn't like I had preschoolers at home or had a daughter that was still in high school.
Right, okay. Now, I've heard it said that in all 10 seasons of American Idol, never has there been a contestant who was so closely tied to his hometown. So now the millions who know Scotty know that he's Scotty from Garner. I've got to wonder, is the fact that you're a Garner businesswoman and you understand the importance of a town's image, the whole public relations, did that in any way play into how Scotty became not just Scotty McCreery, but Garner's Scotty McCreery?
I think so, because I knew that we would need town support, and then the tentacles from that would spread out among the state. But, you know, from being in sales and marketing and being in real estate the last 14 years, you know, I knew how important branding was. And I mean, I was proud, and Scotty also proud of our hometown. So Scotty and I had discussed when we went to Hollywood Week, we're always going to say we're from Garner now. Okay. Well, he slipped up on the clip they showed on television. The producers or the judges asked where you're from, and he said, I'm from Raleigh. He said, really, a Garner, which is just outside of Raleigh. Well, when the clip aired on television, they didn't show him backtracking, saying, really, Garner, outside of Raleigh. And it just showed that he said he was from Raleigh. And we had a little backlash at home. And that was not a part of our plan. We always wanted to have Garner front and center. Okay. And every time he got an opportunity, you know, he had on his Garner high school shirt, Garner baseball, Blue Cruise, Garner baseball cap. Yeah, it was really neat. We really wanted to keep Garner front and center. I mean, really, because we were proud of our hometown. We told people it was like an overgrown Mayberry.
Well, we've had some out-of-town tourists stop by the chamber. They asked questions about Scotty. Where's the grocery store where he worked? Where does he live? Of course, we never tell them where Scotty lives.
They find us anyway.
Well, that was my question. Do any of those tourists ever find their way to your house?
Yes, you know, I haven't been home but like 6 days since February, but my husband has stories all the time. And it's not just teenagers or little girls, they're like grandparents. And Mike says he'll look out the window and somebody's standing in the front yard taking a picture. You know, we have a front porch on the front of our house, and Mike said one night he was laying in bed and there was this flash that came through the blinds, and it scared him to death, and the dog started to bark, but he thinks somebody was taking a picture of our house, outside at night. But he's had a handful of people ring the doorbell and say, are you Scotty's dad? And we're on our way back to Texas from the Outer Banks. Can my daughter get a picture with you? And then one dad said, does Scotty still play baseball? And my husband's like, sure, I play baseball too. And he said, well, can I get my son out of the van? Will you play catch with my son? And it's like, and Mike is so kind. He's like, sure. So Mike says he's throwing ball with this little kid in the front yard. And Neil, at the entrance of our neighborhood in Heather Woods, there's this big Scotty banner.
Yes.
Heather Woods loves you this big. Well, Mike said he came home one day and it looked to be an Amish family, in their long dresses and their little caps. There was an Amish family standing in front of that sign and somebody was taking their picture.
Amazing.
Very amazing.
Now, we heard it from several of the people who work with American Idol back when we had the hometown visit in Garner. Scotty's tutor, his personal guard, the producer, they all said, never has there been a more successful hometown visit than this one. Never have we had bigger attendance. Never has there been more support for the way it was organized. Nothing but accolades from that group. So what do you make of that? How did that make you feel that the hometown had done such a good
Wow.
preparation?
Neil, I knew in my heart that Garner would pull off something really big. Number one, to back up. I feel like if you're a person of faith, there was higher power involved. This was all part of a bigger plan looking back. And I feel like our community is a part of that plan to do good things for people and businesses, but I also feel like Scott, it's part of God's plan for him to be a light in this, world of pop culture and entertainment. And I feel like Garner was an instrument for that. It's a basic human need to want to be connected, and in Garner there's so many great opportunities to be connected to, whether you're in the chamber or your local church or your school or your dance group or Garner Town players. And so there was so much organization there, such quality people. Really highly ethical people, strong work ethic. And I knew that they were so organized. I knew there was a great cohesive relationship between the town government and the chamber and local churches and the high school. I just had this warm, fuzzy feeling as Scotty approached the top three that all those entities would come together for the common good, not necessarily for the fame and the glory, but because it was a good thing. There were so many good things that came out of that. And once I heard that the town of Garner had made contact with another location in the South that had a hometown visit, I knew that it would go off without a hitch. I had no clue that we'd have more people show up for the event than actually lived in the town of Garner, and that kind of blew me away. And see, Scotty and I had been living on the West Coast. We only caught little glimpses of what was happening back home. And so we had not been home since February. And when we got to Garner that day and we saw the signs with the guitars and we saw the families walking down the sidewalks at Lake Benson Park, and how organized things were at Lake Benson. I've gone there to see the symphony play almost every July 3rd for probably the last 10, 12 years. But I had never seen a stage set up like that. And there's, the big Garner logo and the lights. And I thought, oh my goodness, all this was for Scotty. But, and it really had a carnival type of state fair atmosphere. You could get a corn dog and get a little fried dough, and had all kinds of great acts. And when looking back, it was just, the movie The Perfect Storm, it was like the perfect event. The powers that be were highly organized, worked well together, and it was just a great thing for the community.
And I understand we might even get more accolades for that the production is up for an Emmy.
Exactly. The producer that worked on that home visit for Scotty had won an Emmy years prior for another Idol contestant. And so she was really upfront that, that would be a great thing. She'd love to have another Emmy in her back pocket. And as soon as she said that, I knew Garner could pull it off, because there's so many people tied into our town government and in the chamber that have a performing arts background or who were a proponent of the arts, and highly organized, great business relationships, and I just knew they could make it happen. And I told that producer, I said, let me tell you, Garner's going to do it big, really. And our town was the perfect size because, like Lauren Elena, who is from Rossville, Georgia, her community loves her. But that town's only 3,000 people, and so they had to go to Chattanooga, 10 minutes north, to really organize Lauren's hometown visit. The community didn't have the resources. But then likewise on the show, I became friends with Pisha McPhee, whose daughter Catherine had been a runner-up the year Taylor Hicks won. Well, she shared that sometimes the kids, when they're from bigger towns, like they were from the Los Angeles area, it's hard to get a big crowd to turn out to the AT&T store visit, to the local high school, because you've got such a huge area, people really don't feel connected. And so Garner, with our 26,000 people, I mean, I just think we were the right size to make it feel like a hometown, but with that big city aura around it.
Well, I hope we can add an Emmy now to the list of accolades.
That'd be great.
With all the success, all this notoriety, any of that bother a mother of a 17-year-old knowing that her son is now, almost overnight, become a public figure?
Yes, I have a great deal of angst about it. I mean, I've said I don't know if I would have really taken that audition serious or even went to Milwaukee if I thought he was going to win like the whole thing, because mentally I'm not ready for him to check out of teenagehood at 17. I mean, he was 16 when he auditioned, he'll be 18 this coming fall. But Scotty's the type of kid that he won't be the life of the party, but he wants to be in the middle of his buddies and what's happening. And so he's been somewhat isolated. And so, everybody has something that makes them tick. For some it might be, a big shopping trip or a football game. But Scotty just wants to be around people similar to him. And that gives me a lot of anxiety that he's not around, 17 and 18 and 19-year-olds, and he's not sitting behind the desk in school, and he didn't play baseball last spring. And everyone talks about how grounded he is and how he's like an old man trapped in this young body, but that's what's made him grounded. I mean, seriously, his community network, his youth group at church, his buddies at the high school. Luckily our kids never had to move out of Garner growing up. I sell real estate, so we did move in our fair share of houses, but they never had to leave Garner. And so the kids that Scotty's in high school with, he was with them in the nursery at church as a baby, and grew up with through church, and played baseball with some of those same boys, and sang in the praise band at church, and played baseball at Garner Baseball. And that's what's made him grounded. And so he hasn't had that for 6-7 months. And so anyway, I'm just trying to put the hammer down and letting the powers that be know that he will be back in school next year. Not the whole year, but he's a senior, and you're only 18 once. And so, his dad and I are trying to work out that at least he's on campus about 50% of the year. Can go to the prom, hopefully play a little more baseball, maybe do the Asheboro Leadership Retreat, all those things that, you expect to do when you're a senior at Garner High School. He could finish school online. But I don't want him to feel like he's forced to sit in front of a computer to finish his senior year. And he wants his diploma to come from Garner High School. I am not kidding about that. And the school is supportive of that as well.
Good. Well, Judy, there is a whole group gathered. There are elected officials from Garner there. There are business leaders from Garner there. Chamber members are there. What would you like to tell them?
Oh, thank you so much for the support. It is so humbling to see how everybody jumped on Scotty's bandwagon. And it wasn't about themselves or really about Scotty. It was about doing a good thing, because I really think, Scotty's the real deal. He's still 17. He's still a boy. I have a fear that there's a target on him and people are just waiting to see him mess up. But I think deep down people know he's good. He's genuine, and they wanted to be supportive of that. And hopefully Scotty will be able to return that and do good things with his talent. And I just appreciate the money, the prayers, everything people did to support him to help get him to where he is now.
Well, Judy, I thank you for this time. I've got a lot more questions, but I'm afraid they're going to start looking for you back at the Sprint Center.
Okay.
So thank you for taking the time.
Certainly.
You, Mike, and Scotty have done an incredible job as ambassadors for Garner. If you could pick the people, the qualities you would want to represent your town, I cannot imagine finding anybody more perfect for the job than you guys.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Neil.
I know I'm still young, but I know how I feel. I might not have too much experience, but I know when love is real. by the way my heart starts pounding.